We service approximately 500 sports organizations globally. In totally, we stream to almost 30 million fans at global level. We're now reaching more than 200 countries across the globe and streaming content from more than 100 countries as well.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the content category. I'm super excited to be here with Pedro. Pedro is the Group Chief Director, Consumer Officer, and Board of Director of 11. Pedro, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I hope I can share a great story with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, to give the audience context about why we're having this conversation, we looked at well over 1,000 companies in the media space, or specifically in the content category. And one of the companies that stood out to us was 11. From the outside in, you think of it as 11 as more of a traditional media company, but looking at you guys, not only your approach in both licensing content and distributing primarily sports content, I think you're taking that traditional media approach and really innovating on top of it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily see existing companies in the content space for this particular vertical. And so it's really interesting that your guys' approach and the ways that you've expanded as an enterprise overall. And that's why we wanted to invite you in the conference. And I think it'd be really cool to learn a little bit more about kind of that evolution of 11 over time and how you guys are innovating in the content space, specifically within sports. So with that, Pedro, I think we have a visual that we could share with the audience.
Let's start with that, and then we move to the questions.
From the world's biggest events to the local communities, we celebrate the beauty of sport and the passion of the fans. Disrupting, innovating. We exist to serve all fans with the sports they love. We are 11. And we stand by the fans, for the fans.
Pedro, I think it would be really great if we just jump directly into learning a little bit more about who is 11, and then we'll dive into questions about the background of 11 and how you guys are innovating. Sounds good?
100%. 11 is an award-winning sports platform, right? We're not only acting on the linear space where we operate out of 8 markets. The most important ones for us include Portugal, Belgium, Poland, and Italy. But we're as well a tech company, right? With the recent acquisition of MyCujo and the MyCujo tech stack in November 2020, we own 100% of a streaming solution. We own 100% of the IP of the company, and we service approximately 500 sports organizations globally. In totally, we stream to almost 30 million fans at global level. I said that the main markets where we operate in the premium space, but through our direct-to-the-consumer platform, we're now reaching more than 200 countries across the globe and streaming content from more than 100 countries.
I'm actually curious, is there a backstory behind 11 of how it started?
100%. We were founded in 2015 by one of the leading sports media entrepreneurs in the world Zani, the owner of Leeds United, with the ambition to serve sports fans in a new, accessible way. The feeling of our founders was that sports fans were not being served as they should be in the traditional media sports industry. So we came up to the market with a fan-centric approach that made the best live sport available across the channels that fans most wanted to consume in, from linear to OTT, and really agnostic as well when it came to distributing in platforms, from our own 100% own platforms to working with social media players, as an example. The first 5 years, we saw the group expand across markets in Europe, so Belgium, Poland, and then later Portugal and Italy, as I explained. We grew a lot in Asia, in Myanmar, Taiwan, Japan, and we did this by building a leading rights portfolio, including the Belgian Pro League, which was announced last year. We own the rights for the next 5 years. In Belgium, right, the direct market, the UEFA Champions League in Portugal, the Premier League in Taiwan, the Serie A in multiple markets, La Liga as well in multiple markets. We went as well beyond football with a deal with the NBA in Belgium and Taiwan, the NFL in Portugal and Belgium, and as well Formula One in Portugal and Poland. 2020 marks our 5th anniversary, and this is a really milestone year for us, in spite of the pandemic and how this hits not only the sports industry, but multiple other industries out there. We've secured the domestic football rights in Belgium, right? So this is the first time that 11, after its founding, secured rights, top-tier domestic rights, going direct in the direct market. And this is obviously a great achievement for the company, proving the model. As we as well launched the strategy for 11 2.0, so our global D2C platform, which was founded by the acquisition of MyCujo to lay the foundations for what's coming next for the future of 11. We will launch the D2C platform, a global platform, later in 2021. Basically.
It's incredible the progress that you made, and also seeing how MyCujo fits into that. And that was a big part on your contribution to setting the tone for the company going forward.
It's important to say, sorry to interrupt, that so the MyCujo.tv platform will cease to exist. We will evolve into becoming 11sports.com, and that will be the basis of the global offering of the company going forward. We will keep the MyCujo brand just as a software as a service business. We have the MyCujo Live Services that we're helping multiple federations out there to have their own white label streaming solution. But the direct to the consumer platform will be transformed into 11sports.com, so 11 branded.
Well, I wanted to dive in a little bit on what you mentioned almost in the early part of the backstory of realizing that the difference between 11 and traditional media companies was really focusing on the fan and building both a distribution, a variety of content, but a variety of different means to access content. And coming from the outside in, looking at 11 and seeing how you guys license sports content and try to distribute in a variety of different regions, I wanted to highlight that point. Maybe you can expand on about what really made 11 much more different than the traditional sports media companies.
As you said, we're really fan-centric. I know a lot of people say this, but this really comes, this is the essence of how we operate as a company. We were really created by fans for the fans, and this is the center of how we operate. We are, all of us in the company, really huge sports fans, and we know what the fans want. When I started my company back in 2014, and as well Andrea in 2015, we all had the vision that there was a lot that was needed to be done to get the company, to need a market that needed a company that knew what the fans want. The first step is we really focus on servicing our customers, and we really serve the sport that they love in an innovative way, even when it comes to serving this in multiple different subscriptions across the key markets. So we have some subscriptions just for motorsports fans. We have subscriptions just for football fans. So we really adapt to the price and to the product that the fan wants. That's one of the first steps. The second step is that we are platform agnostic. Although we own our own platforms and we're growing, as I just explained, the 11 2.0 strategy with 11sports.com, we really make sure that the content is available across as many channels as possible. So we are where the fan is. So we try to be as well. And we are the only media company of its kind to be created in the past 5 years, which is already profitable on a group level. And this is really good news. We offer content at the right price to the consumer. So we're not overpricing content. We offer content adapted to each consumer. We are platform agnostic, and resuming again, we did all of this in 5 years and being profitable at group level. So this is really exciting.
I think it's, especially for the time horizon that you're in and the ambitious strategy that you have and the markets that you're in and for the content that you work with, it's fantastic that you've gotten to that point of sustainability and profitability. You had brought up a lot of good points that I do want to have questions about, both business model, distribution strategy, et cetera. But even before that, I'm just curious on your content strategy, because you have a broad mix of, I think, both sports content. I think you're even in esports, a variety of different sports leagues. You talked about Formula One. And at the same time, you're in a variety of very different type of markets. You're in the Asia region, you're in Europe, etc. And so I'm just curious, what is a group like 11's, what is your content strategy overall? Is it just to a massive, large quantity of sports content across the board, or is it very specific are you attacking specific verticals for each market that you have content rights in?
We believe we have the secret for the future, right? We want to build a 24/7 destination for the sports fan. And we really believe, by saying this, we believe in multiple levels of content, addressing the multiple fans out there. So we really believe in premium content, right, and premium rights. And we have rights to many or most of the world's best competitions around there. I already mentioned the Champions League, the Pro League in Belgium, the Premier League, La Liga, NBA, NFL, Formula One, and multiple other competitions, Serie A. I could go on and on. So we really believe in premium, and we really believe that premium is a huge factor to drive a big piece of our community to consume content in our platforms. But we do believe that premium is not 24/7 available for consumers, right? So there's multiple formats around premium that we're serving to keep the consumer engaged and as well entertained. But we believe that the secret is going beyond. So we really believe in long tail as well. Throughout 7 days of the week, there are multiple times of the day where you don't have premium content available. And we're working every day with our teams to make sure that we fill out those slots with important long tail content, not only because we believe in the value of it for the general football fan, but as well, we do believe that with the power of technology, we can now enable the production of this content. And it's, again, with 100% own technology and end-to-end streaming solution, we're able to basically produce and distribute content at the right cost. So we can serve these multiple communities of fans that before were not able to consume this content either on TV or online. And we have very successful partnerships out there. I can name, for instance, the Serie D in Brazil, the 4th tier in Brazil. We have, for instance, the Serie C in Italy, where we have 80K subscribers across the platform. So we're really proving that not only premium content is driving value in terms of business, but as well interest for entertaining for the fans, but as well long tail is proving more and more to be a great bet for the company. And this is well where we have most of the space going forward, because there's multiple more things you can do with this type of rights. And again, reinforcing that besides our focus in building 11 1.0, so the linear side of the business, market by market, following the acquisition of Mike, we are building a global sports platform in 2021 to bring fans thousands of hours of live long tail sports. But we don't want to stop just in football. We want to go to multiple other sports. We're going as well to esports. We currently have approximately 40 federations, football federations, where we have agreements to organize esports competitions, but we want to go to women's sports and beyond.
It's impressive, both the vision that you guys have, but the content strategy you're after is really to attack a lot of verticals and bring some fantastic, where you've talked about premium content almost 24/7 globally. And I think that's a quite unique strategy. I'm just curious on two aspects. One is some of the markets that you're in today, whether it's places like Poland or Japan or Portugal or other countries that we were talking about before. In these countries, did they just not have access to a lot of this premium content? And then to follow up on that comment as well, I'm just curious how you're able to win over rights to content versus other providers, and what makes that you guys as a competitive partner, especially in these regions, for a lot of these content providers.
I could start by answering on the behalf of 11 that we, as a brand and as a value proposition, I think we add new things to the market. I already explained the fact that we're platform agnostic, but the fact that as well there's the need in many markets to have a player that brings a certain, an independent player to come into markets and then to run the sports proposition on behalf of operators, let's say. This happened in some of the markets where the operators were running the sports proposition to the consumer, but they feel that's not their specialized thing to do, that there needs to be a player that is specialized in driving quality content to the fan. And not only the live game itself, but all the value proposition that goes around the live match, like commentating or original content pieces. And I really believe these are the key factors going forward. And then we have our founder, Andrea Hadrizzani, is one of the biggest sports media players in the world. He has been working in the sports media industry for more than 30 years now, and he has been managing many of these rights at an agency level in the past. So this was a huge help for us as well. When we launched the company, we had access to many of these rights holders, and we were able as well to understand what they needed mostly, because it's not always a matter of how much someone is willing to pay for the rights, but as well on how you plan to work on the long term with these partners. So I think that there's a huge value as well there, basically.
I think it definitely is both an art and a skill, and not only identifying how to win over fantastic content and distribute it in a way that actually is beneficial for you guys, but in a way that fans enjoy, but the original content creators enjoy, and balancing the happiness of both parties. I could only imagine the level of work that goes into it, and also knowing the right content for the right regions.
We are very in favor of the fact that we should not overpay for rights, or no one should, and we should not overprice these rights as well. So we really, sports need to be in front of the consumers. The consumers and the fans are the ones that make the sports great. So we're really big fans of long-term partnerships with these partners, building sustainable business models with great quality and value.
I'm curious, because I just wanted to highlight this. You talked about that there's a lot of components on top of working with the partner who's dedicated and providing a great experience around content. And I just, maybe for the audience perspective, can you give us an idea of what are those aspects of that experience that you guys bring together with distributing that content in the region that really both make your fans happy, but then also those content providers' willingness to work with you and knowing that you're going to provide a really good experience? I know you mentioned some commentary. So is this your additional content that you add on top of the existing content that's distributed in the region? It's just the way it's their fans interface with the content? Maybe
we do different things, and I could name a million of things, but it goes beyond offering the content in a linear way, just purely for live, right? So we need to understand that we're addressing different generations when it comes to the sports that we're putting through our platforms direct to the consumer, either linearly or digitally. So there's multiple other aspects that you need to provide in order to make sure that our brand reaches the consumer, or the content reaches the consumer ultimately, because that's the main objective. And besides what I just explained, having obviously really great quality commentating around the content itself, so really fresh new visions and on how we address the live matches, I think we have some features across our technology, and as well that we leverage digitally, that enable us to extend the experience we have on live. As an example, we work with WhatsApp, and during the Champions League rounds, with obviously the latency that we are contractually obliged to, we are servicing multitude of fans across Portugal with the highlights of every match in an almost real-time manner. Let's say tonight, for instance, a good example, we have the Champions League matches, I think Porto against Juventus. When the people are not able to be watching the match live, they can just watch maybe the second half. We will be feeding these fans directly on their WhatsApp. Whenever there's a goal, we will basically send a video with the specific goal. So then maybe the person, so we're keeping the person updated, and when he's able to join the live viewing, then he will basically be able to follow the whole match. This is one aspect. Another aspect, for instance, is we have a feature called the Watch Together. Basically, we were, I think, the first media company to, or one of the first media companies to launch this, even way before COVID times, where we enable in our OTTs the fans to basically do a watch party. So they come together, and since they are all in their homes, they basically can connect to the feed with their cameras, and they're basically watching the game together, having a nice drink and just enjoying like they were together. So these are the type of things that we're doing on a daily basis to make sure that we are more innovative, that we leverage, we go beyond than just the TV screen, and that we reach the consumer in different formats for different tastes, so on and so forth.
No, it definitely makes sense. And I think you guys also have a social network content. Is it for the fans? Is that you guys? Yeah. So it's incredible to see that you guys understand the value of the experience for your fans and making sure that you can really enhance that in a way that's engaging, especially what you talked about. It feels like there's a weird evolution of how users across different generations are consuming sports and how they want to stay engaged, and recognizing that and covering that across the board. And a few of the examples that you mentioned. And I'll actually get in. I have a question to follow up on that a little bit later, but I wanted to dive in on your distribution strategy for content. You talked about how you do linear and OTT, you're platform agnostic. You have, with the addition of MyCujo, evolving into 11, providing a sports content platform that distributes content to globally. I'm just curious, why was this, you may have mentioned it a little bit earlier, but why was this the direction for content distribution? Is it being able to just make sure you can connect in a lot of different ways, regardless of the type of user, regardless of the market they're in, and just making sure you reach that whole ecosystem? Is there more value in trying to be on other platforms versus some traditional ones? Is it for you just a way in which you can move content to a lot more regions that you may not have been able to do before? And I'm also, as following up on that last point, does it make it a little bit more challenging with the content licensing rights now that you can distribute content on different platforms that might have a global audience? And I'm sure there's complexity in that as well, but sorry, it's a loaded question, but I'm just curious on this content distribution strategy, how you guys evolved with that.
As I explained some of the things already before, but I think the most important thing to say is that we're focused on the fan, and we want to make sure that we reach ultimately the most number of fans as possible, or to make sure that a fan that is following a specific content is able to access it in the markets where we operate. So that's the main idea behind. Then secondly, obviously, to make sure that our business model scales and grows and it's profitable. And we've been able to prove that already this year. So I have to say that we have a very flexible approach when it comes to the distributing of the content. We combine, when it comes to business model, subscriptions with pay-per-views, with giving free content, where we generate money from, obviously, from advertising or brand awareness. But we as well use some content to drive social media reach, increase fan engagement that will eventually have return on investment going forward to us. I mentioned as well before that we are platform agnostic. We're available to fans wherever and however they want to consume the content of their favorite sport. An example I gave you was just recently how in Portugal we're giving the content to fans when it's Champions League night and they're not able to consume it in our live channel through WhatsApp. Basically not live, we just give the content on demand, the goal with the contractual delay that we're entitled to. And yeah, it's a big part of our business to form as well carriage deals, right? This is one of the major drivers for revenues for the company. So we really close these deals with traditional media operators to make our content available through linear platforms. And that's where many fans still are. So that's, again, we don't do this mainly for the revenue purposes. Obviously, this is very important for us, but we really know that many fans subscribe these operators. So we really strike deals. We don't believe going fully digital because of that. There's still many fans out there that are not ready to go fully digital. So we really need to be adapted to that reality still. And we really believe that the transition will take some years. We really are working with these platforms, but OTT has been becoming more and more a core asset for us, where we, since 2015, have been working in our digital offering, mainly on a market by market basis, on the premium markets we have. And now with the acquisition of MyCujo and the building of 11sports.com D2C offering globally will be more and more a big focus for us. But again, we really are multi-distribution. We have a multi-distribution approach with the fan always at the center of all the actions. Never jeopardizing the business model and the business plan, obviously. Always scalable, always with the thinking in mind that, of the profitability of the company and how fast we can scale and grow the business.
It's incredible to see as a traditional media company how you guys have been very flexible and understanding this evolution of how content is evolving, both on the consumption model, the platforms that it lives, the users that are and their expectations that they have, and catering to all of it. I think that's difficult and challenging, and it takes a tremendous amount of skill in the fact that you guys have done that in a variety of different formats and ways in which you can engage with your audience is super impressive. And on top of that, the business model, and this is what I wanted to highlight as well. It seems like you have almost every aspect of ways in which you can monetize content. You mentioned there's the subscription, there's pay-per-view, you even have social content that goes out that maybe caters more to the freemium side. And then you have, the individual or the traditional advertising and working directly with brands and having that set to give that variety of options to your consumers, I think is impressive. But
And, and I forgot to mention sorry to interrupt. And with the adding of MyCujo as well, with the acquisition, we're now scaling our betting business as well. So when we acquire rights, we as well try to make sure that we lock down the data NAV rights, and we're working together with data brokers. And we're as well, beyond the direct to the consumer monetization, fastly growing our betting business model. Again, selling AV and data for data brokers that then will sell this to operators in the end.
You talked in the beginning, the vision of really trying to provide premium content, great sports content to a lot of your users 24/7, regardless of the region that they're in. Do you, looking at the business models, do you start to skew towards one business model? And is that kind of your goal long-term? Is it going to be this pay-per-view subscription? And is that just traditionally what everyone feels comfortable with as a user base? Or do you think that's evolving and the business model that really depends on the region? Just curious about how you think your business model may or may not have evolved over time.
It really varies from market to market. We have extremely good relationships with operators in markets, and for the time being, doesn't make sense for us to cannibalize the relationship with these operators. And we really want to work with these operators for many years to come. And they still have an important role because they have many fans in these platforms, and we want to be where the fan is. At the same time, that we're not operating in multiple markets out there. And we really feel that building up a subscription-based approach or a registered consumer-based approach globally could be as well a secret ingredient for us to understand which market are we going to go next with the biggest focus. We really do not have, obviously we have a clear model and we have a clear understanding of how we can scale the business. Obviously 11 2.0 and our direct to the consumer global approach has a massive focus for us. And I would name 3 business models there where we are basically aggregating a community of users under subscription and pay-per-view. So users register, they can subscribe monthly, or they can consume content under bundles or pay-per-view, but we still get a direct relationship with this consumer. We are as well then monetizing the community within this platform, and obviously, as I mentioned, everything we acquire, and not only in the premium sector, but as well on the long tail sector, we try to then drive this digitally to our betting partners, where we can monetize this extensively as well and scale. So this is very clear. This is a very huge bet for the company going forward. But we still believe that for the next good years, the business model around operators and subscribers through operators, it's still going to be a big part of the business. And it's something that is very scalable as well. As I mentioned in the beginning, in 2015, we started in a few markets. Now we're operating out of 8 markets, and there's many more opportunities out there. And we are profitable, right, at group level. We know in some markets it takes some time to get to profitability, but we're getting there in almost all of them. And we now understand the secret sauce on how we could scale maybe from the 8 markets we currently own to approximately 20 or more. So both models are scalable. Both models are really well strategically executable, and so I don't want to name a specific business model. I would like to work with both for the years with all of them with the years to come.
I think it goes back to your ability to be very flexible as a media company overall, and being very dynamic with the needs of your fans, and then also trying to find that right mix of what actually work and actually is practical, that scales, especially the content that you're licensing, and managing that relationship with those that you're licensing content from as well. So it's impressive what you guys have done so far and how you've navigated that landscape and understand the different models. Taking a step back, less on the product, more general market questions. I'm just curious from your perspective, do you think that sports content consumption is changing? And whether it's the format, the length of viewership, the type of viewers, the platforms that exist on, I'm sure there's a lot of answers and directions to go with this, but just in general, do you think that the consumption of sports is changing, and how does 11 catering to that?
We still see that sports reaches all ages and genders, right? So we really at all levels of the pyramid, but I can definitely see that sports consumption is changing. We really see that we're not competing with other sports platforms anymore. We're competing with multiple other platforms offering different types of content. So we're competing with the likes of Netflix and Amazon Prime and because the consumer now leverages its free time with his mobile phone, with the family, maybe with the TV open, and then in the family maybe you have 5 members watching 5 different things at the same time. Our main objective is to try to make sure that we have the rights holders, but as well the fans, as well, making sure that they're being entertained with the right level of content. So I think that point number 1, sports evolved from being an entertaining show that is only watched on TV to being watched as well in mobile phones and in computer, in laptops, so digitally. And for instance, on a long tail environment, we have data that clearly states that 80% of our consumers consume content with their mobile phones, and even in premium in many times. So that's obviously already a major shift, right? When you're watching content in a big screen, maybe you need a production that has 30 something cameras. When you're watching it in a small screen, maybe you don't need that high level of production as well. And not only when it comes to live, I think live needs to evolve into serving the consumer in real time, because sports is real time most of the times, and adapting different formats to different consumers. Maybe you have a sports fan that is spending his free time with the family and he doesn't have time to watch the full 90 minutes. So maybe if you can reach this consumer in this specific day that is not available with different formats that make him engage with your platform or with your brand, obviously this is something that needs to change, because it's growing more and more, this type of consumer. And then we see lately as well the original content pieces around the sport itself. So we've seen how successfully some entertaining platforms like Netflix launched documentaries around specific sports, and how these documentaries basically sparkled the interest of many people to acquire a lot of items around these specific sports. We see as well how stories around the game, like for instance, how we did around Leeds United, and how we worked with Amazon as well to launch this road to the Premier League. We had the first season where we didn't promote, but then the second season we're promoting, right? There's a lot of interesting stories and emotional stories around the game, that it's just not about the 90 minutes. And I think the people that work in sports entertainment are now understanding that we're just touching the surface, and that there's a lot that needs to be done going forward, not only adapting to the screen, but adapting to the consumer. We need to go beyond than just the hardcore fan that is willing to watch the 90 minutes. We really can reach much more and compete with many more entertaining platforms than just the sporting platforms.
I actually want to backtrack a little bit based on some of the things that you mentioned, going back into the product, and specifically earlier we talked about the distribution strategy as well, because you have your content is on a lot of different platforms, and then at the same time you have your own interface where consumers can go directly to and enjoy your content. I'm just curious, so thinking about the future of sports consumption and the expectations of consumers, and seeing how other media companies are evolving with how they can attract users to their own platform, as 11 and as a media company, is your goal to try to build out your own platform that is the kind of single interface where everyone consumes and engage with content? Or do you think there's a blend between having your own platform and then distributing on other people's platforms and tools? Or do you think that there's long-term, it's just making sure that your content's on every platform and trying to cater to those platforms and engage with their customers or those viewers on those platforms? How do you, because this seems like a topic among a lot of content providers overall, is do you have your own platform? Do you distribute everywhere? What's the focus? What should be the right strategy? Some are playing with the discoverability aspect. Others are grappling with ways in which you can monetize content or control to the consumer experience. What is your guys' strategy overall long-term?
We're obviously, our strategy long-term is to aggregate as many users as possible in our own platform, right? Because that's where we believe we can offer the best experience to the consumer. We control the product, we control the tech, we control 100% of the experience, and we believe we can build the full ecosystem there. So that's the ultimate objective of the company going forward. But we do believe that until we reach that point, we really need to be where the fan is. And we have multiple examples, and we do this strategy adapting to the different markets. In Myanmar, for example, Facebook is a dominant platform. So we have our games available in the platform there. But obviously we work as well with free-to-air in the market. So we try to play and try to make sure that we leverage the platform to brands, the brands, basically to market the brand and drive consumers to our platform. But at the same time, we really want to make sure that we're monetizing the consumers that do not want to leave this platform to consume the content. So we want to be where the consumer is. But we've done as well many innovative platform partnerships in the recent years, and we continue to explore different ones. As an example, we've worked with OneFootball under PPV in certain markets. Now, 11 Belgium, internationally, we're exploring the Pro League rights in 3 different platforms. So in MyCujo, still live, but it's going to be 11sports.com rights, in live now, and as well in OneFootball. So we really want to make sure that we're doing different things in different markets, adapting to where the consumer is always in the back of our hand and how we can monetize it better. In Italy, for instance, we work with YouTube, where we're selling some of our Serie C games in Italy through our YouTube channel. So we really believe that, again, going forward, the main focus is obviously to narrow down the experience of the consumer when it comes to 11 into our own platforms, because we really believe we can offer the best quality option there with all the features that enable multiple experiences of the consumer. But we need to build that along the way. It doesn't need to be something drastic. It needs to be something built. And in the future, maybe we will understand that we will continue to be agnostic in certain markets and working with different partners as well, and working with different as well competitors in some cases.
It seems like it's going to have to always be a blend, especially catering to so many different variety of users that exist on so many different platforms. And I think it goes back to what's impressive about 11 is how flexible you guys have been for your fans. And really, it goes back to even the broader picture about really being focused on the fans from the very beginning and building that into business models, distribution strategy, et cetera. So it's really impressive.
What we've been able to understand as well is that we've built it's a scale model, right? So we really know now that we know where to invest, where to acquire content, where to distribute this content, where to monetize it. And we now, since the inception of the company 5 years ago, and as well with the add-on of MyCujo now, we know exactly where we need to be, when, and how much we need to invest to get to our objective. So it's really the model, the machine is running and ready to scale at all levels.
Switching to a separate topic, I'm curious, this past year, almost over a year, we've been living through a pandemic, and sports is one of those industries where it seems like it was definitely impacted by the pandemic. I'm just curious, both as a company and generally for your industry, has the pandemic affected you guys?
We need to be honest saying the pandemic affected everyone, right? And but I have to say that there were industries that were massively more affected than our own. COVID has catalyzed the move towards digital, right? With everyone being forced to live their lives in a more digital way. And this is mainly the most positive impact that we've suffered. And we will use the wave to accelerate our growth into our digital offering, as I explained multiple times during this conversation. It has also focused the need to provide great value to fans at a time where there's a really real economic pressure in families right out there. We really are proud to keep saying that we are not overpricing the content, especially when we look into the markets where we operate. We're really trying to offer the best quality contents in the best quality formats to the fans out there at the right price, making it a scalable and profitable business model. Because again, without the fans, we would not be able to be where we are. So we really believe that the pandemic impacted us, I have to say, in a positive way. That's how we like to look at things, let's say. But again, we need to assess going forward how the real economic pressure of the families will have in the future in the industry. But I have to say that we've been only growing, we've kept investing, we're acquiring companies. So we really believe that the future is bright and entertainment will have and will continue to have an important role in people's lives, especially sports entertainment.
I got one last question for you here, Pedro, before we close out. Thank you so much again for taking so much time to chat with me. I really appreciate it. We talked about it a little bit earlier, one of my previous comments, but I'm just being a little bit more general. What do you think is the future of sports content, whether it's creation, distribution, et cetera? And what do you see that other people don't?
I really believe that the future and the founding principles for this will be on new global platform that we will launch later this year. But I think the focus for the future, for many years, we've been focusing on premium sports, and premium sports will continue to have a major relevance. And who doesn't like to watch the NFL, the NBA, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, the Belgian Pro League? So I can go on and on. But I really think the founding principle is in valuing the delivering for underserved communities out there, because there are multiple sports properties out there that do not reach their consumers digitally, not only in their local space, but as well globally. And we've been able to prove that this business model is not only profitable, that it scales, and it scales big. So I think that this is one of the founding principles of the future. And I think that merging the experience of how you can watch the Premier League, but at the same time being able to watch your local club and have everything, every single aspect of your sport experience in the same platform, I think that's one of the biggest secrets for the future. You don't want to be subscribing to multiple platforms, although you will always will, because there's multiple competitors out there. And again, I'm not only putting my competitors to the sports industry, I'm saying as well multiple other platforms. So I really believe that's one of the secret spots. I think focusing on long tail and how we can merge long tail with premium, right? And merging this experience together and growing this business model and scaling it. And then finally, I really believe that there's a huge value in esports and women's sports. And we are investing, and we will continue investing a lot. I think esports has a lot to say, and women's sports, there's massive space to grow there. We have been streaming and broadcasting women's football since 2014 in our platforms. In my Cujo in 2014, now we are 11, but 11 as well since the very, very early days. So I really believe that these three aspects will be the secret sauce for the future.
Pedro, this has been a wonderful experience. Again, thank you so much. Before I close out, anything else that you'd like to share or announce or ask of the audience?
No, I would just like to thank you first, Kyle, for the opportunity and for the invitation. It has been a pleasure speaking with you so far. And I just want to say a few remarks and trying to explain that although this has been really challenging times this year, for many years, or I think none of us experienced such a moment in our lives. But we really, although against all odds, continued to be very ambitious. We continued to grow at multiple levels, closing the Belgium deal, acquiring my Cujo, and continuing to expand as well, and progressing on our revenue results. So it's been impressive how we've been able to not be affected by this. And we're now the only sports platform of its launched in the last few years that is profitable at group level. So I'm really proud to say this as a closing remark, Mark. And we're really proud, and we look forward to continue to grow at a rapid pace. Not only the linear business, 11 1.0, scaling it into multiple other markets, but with a lot of focus as well in our new platform and our global D2C business that we will launch soon. Thank you so much once again.
No, thank you. And this has been fantastic. And again, for the audience, why we had this conversation, we looked at well over 1,000 companies, especially across a variety of different content formats. And one of the companies that stood out to us was 11, and you got to hear that today, and the reasons why. You have an impressive approach, not only in ways in which you find the right content, the ways in which you distribute that content in a variety of markets, but your focus on what you talked about in the very beginning, which is on the fans, focusing on the experience, focusing on the flexibility of the different business models, focusing on how you can find the right approach and both finding and scaling content regions that's practical for you as a company, for your users, and making the content consumption fair, also working with the right content providers, and then seeing your vision and your long-term goal, and really trying to make sure that everyone can access some impressive sports content, both at the premium level and a variety of other content, especially as we see different sports categories like esports arise, and making that an available and the same and enjoyable experience. That it's impressive what you guys have built so far and continue to do. And then also being able to weather the storm that we've recently gone into, a global pandemic that you could probably never foresee, and then being able to weather that storm and continue to keep the company afloat moving forward, and being one of the very few sports companies or sports networks at a group level out there that is actually profitable and continuing to grow and accelerate long term. So it's fantastic what you guys have done so far. Thank you again for taking so much time to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to you. Thank you so much.